Don't miss the tea. Subscribe now.
Girl, pour another glass of wine. No, fill it to the brim. You are absolutely not going to believe the realization I had today. I feel like I just woke up from a 3-year coma where I was being held hostage by a calculator. You remember when I first met him, right? I was still at uni, living that broke student life. Then he swoops in. Older, established, with this aura of I have my life together. Immediately, he introduced this lavishness, Michelin Guide bistros, weekend trips to the coast. At first, I was dazzled. I thought, wow, this is how adults live. But very quickly, the dynamic shifted. It wasn't that he was treating me. He had these expensive tastes and just expected me to participate. He wanted fancy dinners and travel, and I'm sitting there looking at my empty bank account thinking, how am I supposed to keep up? This is the part that makes me scream. Instead of him offering to cover costs, I felt pressure to level up. I literally put university on hold and took a year break just to get a corporate job so I could afford to date him. I was pulling in $50K, huge money for me. I thought, now I'm an equal. And that is exactly when the mask fell off. That is when I found out exactly how much he was making. Girl. He was on a salary of $250,000, $5 times what I made. And that's when the financial terror started. I was dating a guy making $250,000 a year while I made $50K, and he insisted on splitting everything 50-50. But it wasn't just splitting bills, it was a pathology. Picture this, we're at the grocery store. I'm buying tampons, he's buying artisanal cheese. We get the receipt, and he snatches it out of my hand like it's the Dead Sea Scrolls. He would stop in the parking lot to input the data into an Excel spreadsheet he kept on the cloud. He tracked every single cent. If we went to dinner and he had a $50 steak and cocktails while I had a salad, he'd use a calculator to verify exactly what I owed him down to the decimal. At the end of the month, he'd present me with an invoice. Hey, you owe me $432.18 for shared expenses. And the stinginess. He never took me on a proper date where he paid. It was always accidental or grudging. In 3 years, he bought me flowers maybe 4 times. There was this one time he bought me a gift, a dress. It cost $20 from a fast fashion rack. This man makes $250,000, tossing me a $20 dress like he's a benevolent king. But wait, it gets worse. This is the story that makes everyone's jaw drop. I was dating a multi-millionaire who was obsessed with money. One day, we were near an ATM because he needed cash. It wasn't his bank, so the machine warned him of a $1 fee. He froze. He turned to me, dead serious, and asked me to give him the cash so he wouldn't have to pay the $1. I looked at his designer shoes and expensive watch and said, "You want me to give you money because you don't want to pay a single dollar." He didn't even blink. He thought it was logical. He wasn't broke. He was broken. If I couldn't pay my share of his lavish lifestyle, he'd just go on trips without me. I felt punished for not being rich. But the final nail in the coffin happened when I lost one of my 2 jobs. I was working double just to keep up with his billing cycle. I was panicking about rent and his stupid Excel sheet. I swallowed my pride, went to him crying, and asked for financial help just until I got back on my feet. He looked me in the eye, the man I paused my degree for, and said, "I don't want to feel used by you." Used, me, the girl paying 50% on a 20% income. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he followed it up with, "But I could buy you some lingerie instead." He wouldn't help me with rent because he felt used, but he offered to buy me lingerie for his own pleasure. I went numb. It was so degrading. It made me realize that to him, I wasn't a partner. I was a recurring subscription service he could cancel if the price went up. I was an object. I realized I have never met a man both so incredibly rich and so disgustingly cheap. It's a special kind of sickness. Looking back, reading old texts, it wasn't just the money. The money was the tool. It was emotional abuse. He loved projection play, calling me greedy or materialistic whenever I mentioned the unfair split. He gaslit me into thinking I was the problem. He wore me down until I thought invoicing your girlfriend was normal. When I finally tried to leave, he cried crocodile tears, then switched to monitoring me, hovering like a vulture. I really tried to make it work. I even got him to therapy, but he quit because the therapist likely called him a narcissist. So I quit him. And honestly, being broke and single is 1,000 times better than being with a millionaire who makes you beg for $1. I have zero respect for him. Now, cheers to that. And remind me, if I ever date a guy who mentions Excel on the first date, to run for the hills.